discussing nasal breathing versus mouth breathing. This is a topic that always needs to be addressed when we're talking about breath work, and this is whether we are regarding increasing your athleticism or to increase your relaxation and your ability to relax. So we've gone over in other videos about the differences in the sympathetic and parasympathetic responses, the stress responses, and how we can kind of start to manipulate those things. So when I breathe through my nose, something that we can examine is that the nose is actually meant for breathing. So where you can physiologically breathe through your mouth, that is possible, and you can live your life like that, it's also possible to always drink your fluids through your nose. You can do that. You can drink through your nose and it'll go to your stomach, but I really don't recommend it. And it's sort of the same thing here with breathing. Your nose, which is filled up with nose hairs, and those are important, those actually have a function for helping to filter out the air that you breathe in. Your mouth has no such function in any way, shape, or form. So when we're breathing, something that we can look at is the air will have dust and bacteria and such in it. Your nose hairs help to filter that out so that there's not such a drastic accumulation in your throat and in your lungs. It helps to prevent that. Whereas when you breathe through your mouth, much greater chances for things like choking because you don't have a filtration system from your mouth to your lungs. So another thing that we can look at here is that as I breathe, if I'm going through my nose, I have to take a lot longer to breathe. So my nose holes are a lot smaller than my big old mouth hole. If my lungs have a set volume and I want to fill up that volume, going through my nose is going to take a lot longer. So breathing through my nose, big breath. Even if you try to rush it, it's still going to take time. Whereas if you try to breathe fully in through your mouth, you're just in and done. It takes a second or two. Nose breathing, though, can take a lot longer. So that gives you a lot more time to kind of depress your diaphragm. And both when you're going in and out through your nose, that takes a lot more time to take your diaphragm all the way along the length of your abdomen as far as it will go, massaging out your organs, massaging out the nerves, your vagus nerve, your blood vessels, and your lymph vessels, which are massive through your belly, and they need a lot of good constant flow. So when we breathe through the nose, it helps to deeply increase sensations of relaxation. So it actually helps to deal with stress. This is a big thing that we try to do when people are having like panic attacks, is trying to slow down and control their breath. That's one of the very first things you do. So same thing when you are performing in athletics. When you've just finished a workout, you're going to be panting. Slow that down. So we're gradually trying to increase the amount of nasal breathing to increase the rate, not increase the rate of breath, but decrease the rate of breath. So it's taking longer both for the inhale and the exhale. So when I have control over my nasal breathing, there's a strong tendency for my body to be more parasympathetic rather than sympathetic, so more relaxed over stressed. If I breathe through my mouth, something that you can do right now is like if you find your pulse and you take like 5 really deep, slow nasal breaths. And especially if there's a bias towards the exhale being as long as you possibly can, so longer than the inhale, what you're going to find is that your heart rate slows down. But if we go to a panting mouth breath, and keep doing that for several seconds and keep a track of your pulse, you can notice that your heart rate actually increases. Well, that's because mouth breathing is linked to being very sympathetic, it's linked to stress, linked to increasing your body's physiological response that's geared towards dealing with a threat, geared towards dealing with a fight, geared towards dealing with a workout maybe. And even when we're dealing with those situations, we still want to be biased towards trying to reclaim nasal breathing as much as possible. So whether we should breathe through our nose or our mouth, it's a little bit context dependent, but generally speaking, we want to be biased towards breathing entirely through the nose, and this is in all cases. I know there's often a thing in fitness, in a lot of fitness spaces, it's always when you're working out, breathe in through your nose, breathe out through your mouth. And honestly, I believe that's just something that was made up. It's a nice, easy pattern people can get into. And breathing with a patterned breath does seem to help keep control over your breathing. You don't want it to be erratic and all over the place. But if I can keep control of nasal breathing, so entirely nasal, entirely in through the nose and entirely out through the nose, you're going to have a lot better control over your own physiology, over your stress, over things like anxiety, and your ability to perform athletically, because that helps to build up greater oxygen and CO2 levels in your bloodstream, Whereas when you breathe out through your mouth, you dump it all out very quickly. So the same as how you can inhale very quickly through your mouth, you can also exhale that air very quickly. And we don't want that when we're working out. We want that buildup of CO2 in our blood. That's something that's important for actually being able to absorb oxygen into your cells. So nose breathing through versus mouth breathing, very simple little overview there. Generally speaking, 9 times out of 10 in daily life, and as much as possible when you're working out and or in a very stressful situation, try to keep it to your nose.